Forever lasted for 3 years, 5 months, and 20 days. My peaceful and predictable life started falling apart 2 weeks ago. I'm Mark, and Carly has been my wife for 3.5 years. We met at a career event during my master's degree, where she praised the company she worked for. Although my degree and her job didn't align, we clicked. After a few ordinary dates, things took off. She was 6 months out of an engagement, and I had been casually dating for the past 2 years. We spent most of our free time together. While she had a salaried position, I was knee-deep in my thesis. We were both cautious about closeness, but once it started, we knew we belonged together. We got married after my graduation, vowing our love would last forever. I found a job close enough for Carly to keep hers, working in network solutions in northern Indiana as a project manager. I oversee a team of 12 and occasionally travel for client setups with a group of colleagues. I don't decide who travels. A group of project managers and my boss, Dennis, make those decisions. We aim to give everyone on-site experience. This time, I had 2 men and 3 women on my team, all older than me. Dealing with a challenging client, their experience was an asset. The first angry encounter didn't take long. We arrived at 8 a.m., had an introductory meeting, and began implementing our solution. Mid-morning, their supposed expert lost his temper with Leanne, one of my qualified team members. I helped diffuse the situation with their site manager. Leanne was shaken, so I gave her time to recover in the coffee room. Unfortunately, the scene repeated itself. After lunch, their expert was sent home, and despite efforts to calm Leanne, I eventually sent her back to the hotel. She joined the team for dinner, and I invited them to join me for a run around the park. Leanne was the only one who accepted. While jogging, she suggested running away together, but I reminded her of company policies regarding relationships between managers and subordinates. Back in my room, I was perplexed by the conversation. I talked with Carly, but didn't mention Leanne's actions. Leanne, always displeased with me being her superior, showed signs of disrespect. The next morning, I asked Leanne if everything was okay. "Currently, I'm fine, Mark," she replied. Thankfully, the day was uneventful. Their expert doubted our work, but didn't lose his temper. My team and I had dinner, and during the evening, a disruptive guest caused a scene. After dinner, I jogged alone, talked with Carly, and watched the 10 p.m. news. A knock on my door revealed Leanne with her coat on. I greeted Leanne and inquired about her well-being, noticing a change in her tone. She mentioned wanting to show me something and proceeded to reveal her body. I advised Leanne to cover up and declined her offer, suggesting she return to her room, with plans to see her in the morning. She responded with a mock sad look and a smile before leaving. Recognizing the importance of informing Dennis, I sent an email seeking a private conversation about Leanne. The next morning, I approached Leanne and asked if everything was okay. She assured me that she was currently fine. While she demonstrated skill in her job, her behavior struck me as strangely odd. Dennis responded to my email later, expressing his intention to meet with me. Upon my return, everything seemed normal for the rest of the trip. Back home, Leanne was as abrupt as usual. I hope whatever caused those 2 strange nights is in the past. Foolishly, I received a text from Leanne on Sunday evening, describing explicit content. Emoticons. I hadn't seen Leanne since our plane landed on Friday evening. She likely sent the text meant for her lover to me by mistake. I didn't respond and planned to talk with her in the morning. The idea of Leanne with a lover was hard to imagine, just saying. However, the same could easily be said about me. I mentioned to Leanne that I thought she had mistakenly sent me a text the previous night. She replied, "Mark, I didn't send anyone a text message last night." I chose not to press the issue. She was deeply involved in debugging a problem, and I had a busy day myself. On Tuesday night, Leanne sent a message, which included a selfie. She expressed, "Could the closeness with you get any better? I don't think so." With more lovebird emoticons, I emailed Dennis again, reminding him of my request for a private conversation. He apologized for the delay, but postponed it until next Monday. Leanne called in sick on Wednesday, as Dennis was out of town. I had to wait a day to confront her. My day was quite ordinary. Unexpectedly, someone called my name as I was getting into my car. Whatever hit me knocked me out, and I woke up in the hospital. The police updated me on Terry, Leanne's husband, who thought I was having an affair with her. He had violently attacked me, causing a concussion, 2 broken ribs, a hernia, and a broken hand. Terry left copies of Leanne's texts and pictures, colored to hide explicit content, next to my unconscious body. Unfortunately, he gave the same copies to Carly. Carly answered the first call, expressing her wish for my painful demise. I stayed in the hospital overnight for observation, and Carly refused to answer her phone. On Thursday, I took a cab home, and Carly wouldn't talk to me. Rather than starving, I ordered pizza on Friday. Despite the pain, I went to the office. In the afternoon, I learned I was on paid leave due to Terry's complaint. My hearing would be on Monday when Dennis returned. When I got home, Carly was dressed provocatively. I questioned Carly about her attire, expressing surprise at her early return and noting the note she left. She replied that she had a date and I warned her not to proceed, emphasizing the irreversible consequences. She responded, suggesting that I was being hypocritical, claiming innocence in the accusations her jealous husband made. According to her, he mistook her for someone else, and she hadn't done anything to jeopardize our marriage. She challenged me to produce proof, denying any response to the alleged texts and pictures. She asserted her complete innocence, expressing disbelief. She mentioned that she might or might not be back that night, advising me not to wait up for her. I reiterated my warning, but she dismissed it, setting in motion the end of our marriage. She revealed her intention to go on a date with someone from work as revenge for what she believed I had done. Her note echoed these sentiments, portraying me as worthless, and indicated her intention to have some fun. After our argument, I tried to get comfortable, but couldn't. I left a note for Carly, explaining that something was really wrong, and I headed to the UR. It was 6 p.m. on Friday. Tests at the hospital revealed a ruptured spleen, and my brother was listed as my emergency contact. They operated, stitched the spleen, and then stitched me back together. I woke up to the beeping and humming sounds, drifting in and out of awareness until finding myself in a sun-filled room. Following their recommended diet, I sat, contemplating my situation. My confusion was interrupted by my cell phone buzzing. Although the number was unfamiliar, I answered it. The caller accused me of being foolish, stating that I had been with her again last night. I defended myself, saying that Terry had the wrong person, as I had been in the hospital since 6 p.m. the previous night. Silence followed. I reiterated that I went to the gym at 8 p.m. and was only gone for an hour. Terry mentioned a text from her that morning, talking about the great closeness we had. I clarified that I was on the operating table and still at University Hospital in room 612. I assured Terry that I was not going anywhere that day and needed to get to the bottom of this. I promised to see her in a bit. I checked my messages and found a text from Leanne claiming that the closeness last night was so good the floor nurse dropped by to check her vitals and change her drip. Overwhelmed, I felt like asking her for something to end this nightmare. She left, saying she'd be back to change my dressings. As soon as the nurse left, Carly entered my room, still dressed provocatively, and asked if I was okay. I assured Leanne that I was fine and asked her to leave, expressing my desire for her not to be around. She pleaded, explaining that she was worried about me and had come right away when she read my note. In response, I stated that her staying out all night meant she ended our marriage, and I insisted she leave. My voice rose, prompting the floor nurse to inquire if everything was okay. I requested her assistance to escort Carly out, and security had to step in. I attempted to make sense of Leanne's actions, considering the possibility of revenge. I wondered if it was due to my rejection of her or being her boss. It had to be one of those reasons. I speculated that she might have mistaken my phone number for someone else's, as nothing else made sense. Carly called my cell, expressing that our marriage was over, and she wanted me to leave her alone. I responded, disagreeing with her, claiming she messed around and now acted self-righteous. She argued that I was wrong, asserting her innocence and stating that we were done. I hung up, and she sent a text message saying, "We need to talk." I refused, stating, "No, we don't. Move your stuff out or set my stuff by the door." She questioned our connection, saying, "I thought we were soulmates. Is that what you thought when you were having your revenge?" I retorted, "Is that what you thought when you were with your lover? I didn't need this." Frustrated, I turned off my cell phone and requested morphine. Just before lunch, the nurse returned to change my dressings, starting with my face. Terry and Leanne knocked and asked if they could come in. Leanne reacted, exclaiming, "Oh my God! Mark, what happened to you? Hi, Leanne. This must be your husband Terry, isn't it? What happened to your lip?" She diverted her eyes. I explained, "I ran into a door. It happened in the employee parking lot. I don't know the status of the investigation at this point. Last night they discovered I had a ruptured spleen. Nothing serious, just a few stitches fixed the problem." I knew Terry was the one who caused my injuries, and so did the police. Evidently, Terry hadn't informed Leanne about his encounter with the police. The nurse finished with my face and asked if I wanted my company to leave while she did the spleen surgery dressings. I replied, "No, let them stay." The nurse needed something, so she left, saying she would return shortly. Leanne took a seat on the chair, and Terry attempted to start a conversation. I gestured for Terry to come closer, and I quietly mentioned my concerns about Leanne's peculiar behavior on the last road trip, asking if she had been under pressure recently. Terry shared in a hushed tone that her mother had died in a car crash last Christmas, and her sister had just started chemo for breast cancer. He added that she seemed to be dealing with it okay. The nurse returned, prompting Terry to back up against the wall, and the room fell silent. Carly stormed in, yelling at me and Leanne. The nurse called security, and Terry restrained Carly until security arrived. After the peace was restored, the nurse continued her work, and Leanne got up, standing close enough to hold my hand. Leanne expressed, "Last night was awesome. We need to go to that beach again. The closeness with you is so good." Terry, myself, and the attending nurse stared in disbelief. The nurse looked at Terry and mentioned, "Don't let her leave, I'll be right back." Terry wrapped Leanne in a hug, silently conveying, "I'm so sorry." After about 5 minutes, the nurse and a pair of doctors escorted Terry and Leanne from the room. I had all afternoon to replay the entire 2 weeks, realizing there were two very different Leanne personalities. Several hours later, Terry returned, expressing his apologies. He inquired about Leanne's odd behavior, and when I mentioned the angry encounter, he lit up. "I'll be right back." He returned with a doctor, and I repeated my story. Terry began explaining, "Mark, when Leanne was a child, she was mentally traumatized quite severely. Her father was relentless in his verbal mistreatment of her. She has been in the midst of a nervous breakdown since last week's encounter. You said she did something strange the day after her work encounter. Was there any conflict involving her that day?" I said no, but then remembered the guest and the tray. The doctor joined in. "That would do it. She has what we call dissociative identity disorder. Basically, she has dual personalities. It is usually a reaction to trauma as a way to help a person avoid bad memories. You must have been the person who interceded on her behalf. You made an imprint on her fantasy personality." Terry asked about Sunday and Tuesday, and I explained about the lawnmower incident and the angry encounter. He inquired about the knockdown fight on the previous night, and I shared that she was upset about the complaint I had filed against him. Terry expressed his regret, understanding the impact on my life. The doctor explained, "Very little can be done. She needs extensive counseling to help her understand what's happened to her people. Get over it. It just takes time." Terry apologized again and left. Even though she had turned my life upside down, I really did feel sorry for Leanne. They informed me that I would likely be released by noon on Sunday if I had an uneventful evening. I sent an email to Dennis asking him to please contact Terry, as there had been some pertinent developments. I scrolled through the text messages from Carly, a whole lot of anger being vented towards me. It saddened me to think that this strange set of circumstances had ended my marriage. I played the voicemails, but her attempts to justify her actions only fueled my anger. They all hit the trash can. On Sunday, I drove back to find my house as I had left it. Carly had not moved out, and my stuff was still there. I started packing what I thought I'd need for the next week. Dennis called around 3 p.m. and asked if he could drop by. He said everyone was convinced I was not at fault and had done nothing wrong. My attempt to talk to him about Leanne, along with Terry explaining her medical issue, had satisfied all of higher management's concerns. I was reinstated, and this would be expunged from my employment history. Leanne had been placed on unpaid leave. I had just placed the last sack in my car when Carly pulled into the driveway. She accused me of planning to run away, calling me a coward. I explained that Leanne had a nervous breakdown and her allegations were untrue. Leanne was under observation at the university, and I suggested talking to Terry for confirmation. Despite my decision to cut my losses and move on, Carly pleaded for me to stay, claiming it was a misunderstanding. Carly insisted that Leanne made up the accusations and apologized, asking me not to leave. I firmly stated that I couldn't spend the next 40 years worried, emphasizing that I wouldn't stay married to a woman who used her personal life as a weapon of revenge. Despite Carly's pleas and apologies, I shook my head, closed my car door, and expressed my determination not to see or hear from her again. Carly continued to beg me not to go, suggesting we could overcome the misunderstanding. I expressed disbelief at her characterization of the situation as a misunderstanding, noting the changed tone in her messages and voicemails. Despite my hopes for an amicable divorce, the judge ordered counseling sessions, influenced by Carly's statement that she didn't want a divorce. Reluctantly, I attended the sessions to avoid any damage to my reputation. The first counseling session took a negative turn as the counselor attempted a divide-and-conquer approach. Carly presented her case, and then we swapped chairs. The counselor asked me to share my feelings, and I reiterated that I wouldn't stay married to a woman who used her personal life as a weapon of revenge. Carly's attempts to understand my feelings and salvage the marriage were met with my resolute stance. I repeated that I wouldn't stay married to a woman who used her personal life as a weapon of revenge. Carly's plea for more communication and cooperation fell on deaf ears, and I left the session, brushing away her attempt to stop me. As the counseling sessions continued, I maintained my refusal to cooperate. Carly persisted in discussing our feelings, but I hummed a song to drown out her attempts. Despite the counselor's efforts, the sessions deepened the divide between us. After complying with the court-ordered sessions, my attorney informed me that we needed to appear before the judge. The judge granted the petition for divorce, acknowledging the irreparable nature of the relationship. Carly's persistent pursuit of me continued after the legal resolution, with her waiting for me after work and running into me at the grocery store. I chose not to explain her actions, and her text messages inviting me out on dates were met with my resistance. Eventually, I found a way to slow down her advances. I responded to Carly's offer to go out on a date by informing her that my new wife would prefer her not to communicate with me anymore. I wished her a great life, and surprisingly, that seemed to work for a week. When she insisted that I wasn't married, I clarified that I hadn't said I was, but when I do find a new wife, that's what she will say. I requested her to move on, claiming that I already had, although her persistence made me anticipate complications in my attempts to find another woman. Now, as I try to navigate the dating scene, it becomes evident that I'm not particularly skilled at it. Despite my efforts, nobody I've encountered so far lives up to the image I had of Carly. However, I'm not in a rush. An acquaintance from accounting, a divorcee, showed interest, and I sought Dennis's approval before asking her out. After a few dates, she expressed a desire for a friends with benefits relationship. The morning after I spent the night with her for the first time, Carly sent a text. Carly questioned whether I loved this new woman, deeming it none of her business. In response, I curtly stated that my feelings were not her concern and conveyed that I still loved her. I added a brief apology, closing the conversation. Too little, too late. In the back of my mind, I can see you all watching my demise play out on Dateline. Leanne returned to work and was placed under the supervision of another manager. I do my best to avoid her. She has never said or done anything OD again. The police didn't want her need me to cooperate to convict Harry. The security cameras provided everything they needed. I did appear at his sentencing to ask the court for lenience. He was given a suspended sentence, but he still has a felony conviction. I've been married to Kathy for more than 30 years. We met when we were young, and now I'm 59 and she's 55. We have 3 adult children. Our life together has had its good and bad times, but we've always been there for each other. Kathy means the world to me. Kathy has some friends who believe in things like feminism, identity politics, and social justice. It's a bit different from what I think, but that's okay. People have their own ideas about these topics. Kathy and I, we sometimes talk about these things and try to understand each other's viewpoints. I did not pay attention to these ideas that Kathy had or was starting to develop. For me, they were all nonsense. Kathy had some strong views about how women were oppressed for a long time, which sometimes scared me. She personally hadn't experienced depression or discrimination. I found these discussions unsettling, so I often tried to change the subject when they came up. I have seen these woke women on TV shouting and talking all nonsense and screaming on people when they did not have any logical answer. I worried that Kathy was getting influenced by them. One day she started questioning our marriage, saying it had become dull. I suggested therapy to work on our relationship, but she wanted to go on a solo vacation instead. I reluctantly agreed, but later found out she went with her friends, who I thought were toxic. When Kathy returned from her vacation a week later, she looked like a completely different person. She had cut her hair short, and there was an unusual aura about her. It felt like she was someone I had never met before. She didn't hug me or show any affection when she arrived, which was unsettling and made me feel like a stranger to her. Kathy continued to spend more time with her friends and engage in protests, some of which I didn't support. I had a serious conversation with her, expressing my concerns about the direction she was heading. I told her that she needed to reconsider her choices. However, she didn't listen and continued with her activities. Things escalated when she was detained for participating in a protest that disrupted traffic. I had to pick Kathy up from the police station, and during the ride home, we had a very heated conversation. She remained silent throughout, which left me even more concerned about what was happening with her. Kathy began using social media, specifically TikTok, to share her feminist ideas. She started gaining a decent following, and it became clear that she was investing a significant amount of time and effort into her videos. She would spend hours getting dressed and creating her content for the platform. Her social media activities seemed to be consuming a lot of her time and energy. One day, I came across a video from Kathy that left me horrified due to its message. In the video, she discussed the desire to avoid becoming a miserable older woman. While emphasizing the common trajectory of raising a family and working hard, she pointed out that many women realize in their 50s or 60s that they have nothing for themselves, leading to resentment. Kathy suggested the need to create individual lives, something exclusive for personal fulfillment. Even in good marriages, she noted that unhappiness could persist. Divorce might not be necessary, but finding what brings fulfillment and a sense of truly living one's life was crucial. Kathy encouraged living each day to the fullest, enjoying good marriages, and maintaining individuality apart from spouses and children. She urged women to break free from routine, explore the world, and discover fulfillment and happiness beyond their roles as mothers. I felt that she was encouraging women to get divorced. I went home that evening and confronted her, and to my shock, she said that she was leaving and had already packed her bags. I tried to stop her, but she shot back and said that she is bored with her life and she wants freedom and happiness. She does not want the responsibilities of her being the grandma or being my wife. She wants to enjoy her life and wants to explore more outside this prison. I was speechless and felt that I had lost my wife to toxic people who have poisoned her mind. I did not stop her and just said that I'll miss her and asked to come back as soon as her exploring is over. She had moved into a smaller apartment in the center of the city. I had informed my kids about their mother, and they all said that she is just going through a phase and will get back home soon. I agreed as well and just waited for her. My wait was cut short soon and turned to shock as I received the divorce papers. She had all this planned and was not in any phase. I called Kathy, but she did not answer. My kids during this time did try to talk my wife out of divorce, but she shut them down as well. A few weeks later, we had our divorce settled, and after 30 years of marriage, I was single. The following day, Kathy shared a new video expressing that she had accomplished the move. In her new place, which she described as feeling like a princess bed, she mentioned the rain during the previous day's move. Today, she woke up with a different feeling, free, as if a weight had been lifted, and she felt genuinely excited for the first time in years. Although her place was still somewhat disorganized due to unpacking, and the apartment was relatively small, requiring intense organization, she conveyed gratitude for this change. After a couple of weeks of continuous moving, she had finally settled into her new apartment. Kathy mentioned that she would provide a tour of it tomorrow. At that moment, she just wanted to say hello. Additionally, she mentioned that her very handsome boyfriend was making dinner for her, emphasizing that life is good. I was angry and heartbroken. She broke my home and now has broken my heart. My kids also saw the video and called me to console me and asked me to move on with my life. Eventually, I did move on and found an amazing woman, Maya, who was in her early 40s. She was a high school teacher and was single. We hit it off instantly and now have been going steady. I never informed my ex-wife, and I did not think it is important. I planned a trip with my kids and Maya so that everyone can know each other and get along. Maya asked me to invite my ex-wife Kathy, as she felt it was important that she knows that there is someone in my life. So I called Kathy and invited her. Initially, she did not agree to join our trip. I did not tell her about Maya by then. My daughter later called her and asked her to join and informed that the invitation would not be extended again. I had hired an amazing boat ride for all of us, and Kathy was the last to join us. She came alone. I introduced her to Maya and told her how happy I am with Maya. I wish I could click a picture of Kathy at that very moment. Her face was red, and it seemed that she was not expecting me to get a life for me. Throughout the trip, I enjoyed Kathy's disgust towards Maya and me, although Maya had a noble intention, but I was really enjoying the results. A few days later, we came across another video of Kathy, where she revealed that the recent days had been highly traumatic for her. Despite acknowledging that it wasn't entirely her fault, she took some blame for the distressing situation. Kathy shared that she anticipated a strong physical and emotional reaction upon discovering that her estranged husband was in a new relationship. Despite being separated for a year, they still spent some family time together, and he had assured her multiple times that he wasn't involved with someone else. However, this turned out to be untrue. Kathy expressed uncertainty about joining a trip, fearing her ex-husband might misinterpret her intentions. Despite these concerns, her daughter convinced her to participate, suggesting that he might not extend another invitation. In hindsight, Kathy understood the reason for her daughter's advice. She clarified that what hurt her the most wasn't the fact that he was in a new relationship, as she had a boyfriend herself, but the fact that he hadn't informed her. She had felt secure, believing he still harbored love for her. He even invited me on a trip with him and our daughters, which I accepted. However, during the trip, I discovered some hurtful texts, and it was horrifying. The trauma that followed was intense. I had a physical and emotional breakdown, and I felt like I had completely lost control of my emotions. It was a terrible experience, and I'm struggling to cope with it. Her upset wasn't about losing me. It was more about losing the exclusive access to my resources and the stability he provided. The specific trigger was when she discovered I was telling another woman that I loved her. Not just that we were involved romantically, unlike Kathy's boyfriend, who was only interested in casual relationships, typically don't invest financially and emotionally in her. But when a man like me is in love, he often wants to build a life with the woman he loves. For Kathy, the real trauma was losing her place in my life to another woman. I began receiving numerous calls from Kathy, where she expressed her remorse and reminded me that I had asked her to come back. In response, I told her that it was too late and she would no longer be a part of my life. That boat has sailed. She had made her choice, created her own circumstances, and now she needed to live with the consequences of her decisions. A few days later, we came across another video from Kathy, where she shared that things weren't going well for her. She reflected on how life used to be good and questioned whether the difficulties were her fault, considering herself possibly selfish or self-centered. Kathy expressed her struggle with the artificiality and pretense around her, admitting she was fine initially, but now the reality of the separation was sinking in. Acknowledging that it was just a separation and there were worse things in the world, Kathy remained uncertain about what her future held. She could only remember the positive aspects and found it challenging to recall anything negative. Kathy reminisced about a lovely woman who was once a close friend, revealing that she had been invited to dinner by this person and had bought gifts for their children. Despite being at home with her own family, Kathy decided to join this other family for dinner, expressing a sense of missing her own family and the struggle of being without them. Kathy confessed that being a family meant a lot to her, and she pondered whether enduring misery would be worthwhile if it meant having her family back. Without them, she felt lost about her identity. Tearfully, Kathy clarified that her emotions weren't due to drinking, but stemmed from the profound difficulty she was facing. She wished everyone a happy Saturday and expressed hope that she would be okay later, acknowledging the profound sense of loss she felt. Kathy concluded by mentioning her plan to go sit with another family who had invited her, appreciating the gesture but acknowledging that it wasn't an easy situation for her. My daughter called me up and asked to do something, but I told them their mother chose this life and I did try to stop her. She wanted freedom. She has freedom. She has a new love life and she can explore the world as she wants. My daughter agreed and said that she agrees with every word I said, but she cannot help but feel for her mother's bad choices. A few days later, there was another video. Good morning. Sometimes I wonder what I'm doing and why I made the choices I did. Last night I had a dream about my estranged husband. He came to me saying he'd hurt his hand badly and was crying. In the dream, he needed my help, and I suggested moving in to take care of him. It felt like we were starting over the way things used to be. It was an upsetting dream, and it's not even possible. It's just how dreams are, I guess. My body is telling me that I still love him, and I always will. But things are different now. Sometimes I get angry and think, why doesn't he believe that I should have a fair share? He wants to give me some money, but it's not enough. All the things we had were partly because of me. My parents lent us money, and I played a significant role in helping him, encouraging him, and being there for him, even when things went wrong. I made mistakes and I paid for them, especially when I left. It seems like everything he did was okay, but everything I did was my fault. I'm constantly blamed for everything. So now I'm at this point in my life. He has more money than I do, and I'm struggling to find a decent place to live. Some people, especially men, think that women don't deserve anything, that they're freeloaders, and that they should just fend for themselves. After 30 years of taking care of someone, I feel undervalued, like I have no worth. It's hard. I saw the video and felt that she has now lost her mind. She did receive her share of fortune as part of the divorce settlement. I did everything by the book, and as per the law, she cannot gaslight me and make me look like a villain in this story and cannot blame me for her bad choices. I wanted to retaliate and wanted to sue her for her video. Maya then stopped me and asked me to ignore her. My kids called Kathy and told her to apologize for what she posted or she will be cut off from everyone's life. Kathy, having no choice, did post a lame apology citing her mental health as a reason. I got married to Maya a few days later, and I did unfollow Kathy on all my social media.